Welcome to the East Mediterranean Forum. My co-host again is Air Commodore Andrew Lambert, and with us is Dr. David Altman of Netanya University. David, hello, welcome.
What a pleasure to be, and what a pleasure to talk to you about everything.
Our subject is Turkey's struggle for hegemony, and David, you have some thoughts to share with us.
Yes, I think it's a great pleasure to speak to you and to speak about a subject which I think is one of the most important things in the whole atmosphere that we are facing. But let me start with something else. When we are speaking in conferences, we have to take into consideration something very important. A lot of times we are speaking from personal experience while the audience are not sharing with us our experience. In 1973, I was the president of the Students of Israel. I studied at that time political science and Sovietology, and I used to become a very popular speaker about the war in Israel at that time, on the October War. And usually people used to listen about everything and took part on it. And after a while, after about 10 years of being a speaker, which was very popular, I saw that I lost the audience. And I said to myself, what happened? The stories are the same stories, the events are the same events. Why are they not listening to me with the same passion? And then I discovered that most of the people that I'm speaking now didn't share with me their experience. They were born 10 years later, and after 10 years, they don't know what I'm talking about altogether. Some of them are listening to stories, some of them are not even listening to the stories, and they're not part of the story. And that created a revolution in the whole my speaking in conferences. Because we have to take into consideration that most of the people that we are speaking to them about previous experiences, they don't know anything about it, and if they know very little, and what they know what was given to them, but far away from the truth. To our subject is very, very important when we are speaking about Turkey and when we are speaking about the situation of today. The world of today is facing a complete change in all what we knew before. It is not the same world, it is not the same atmosphere, it is not the same government, it won't be the same government in anywhere in the world. Everything is changing. But it has to do with something. And unfortunately, it starts with Turkey. How did it start with Turkey? The changes in the 21st century are essential one, and it reflects on everything. But exactly 100 years ago, changes were created in the Middle East. It was the First World War, as we call it, and that changed the world completely. The First World War left the world speechless. Because up till now, we had war in the region. People used to take the horses, went to the battlefield, 200 people were killed in one side, 200 people were killed in the other side, and then they all went to drink tea and to speak together and to play soccer in somewhere around. The First World War costed the people who attended 16.5 million people who were killed. And the war changed the world. The world was not ready for it. And the world started to think, what is happening? If 16.5 million people can die, what will happen? What can we do? Why did it happen? One of the things that they were worried about was Turkey. Turkey was the empire that for 700 years threatened the whole world, especially Europe. And during this war, part of the big part of the casualties, you can really say that Turkey was responsible for. Not only, but more so, Europe was afraid of the ability of the Ottoman Empire to take parts of Europe, which they took. One country, another country, Bulgaria, in the Balkans all the time, one Muslim country, and the threat of a Muslim country not far away with such power has to do something. And then they are having a war, and for the first time, the whole empire is flat. So what is happening? Two officers, not high officers, captains, are sitting and dividing the empire among themselves. And what is happening? This is the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Captain Sykes and Major Picot are sitting together and starting to make new plans and creating new nations, new countries, which has nothing to do with reality. No natural border, no people who belongs to one sect or to one religion or to one minority, but concentrating together. And in a very short while, they are having a new map, a new political map in the whole region of what used to be the empire of the Ottoman Empire. Unfortunately, nothing was kept. One by one, every country that was established at that time, besides very few, had a change, had a revolution. In Iraq, which was a kingdom, it was Qasim, and it was Aref, and it was all the generals who took their place. In Syria, we had one problem. In Lebanon, we had another problem. In every place, we had minorities. We had people who could not live together, who could not. All what is happening today, that we are suffering of today, started at Sykes-Picot and in San Remo, the agreement that was taking place. That was the leftover of Turkey. At the meantime, in Turkey, the world was in a shock. What are we doing with Turkey? The new leader of Turkey is a powerful man, a great general, but he comes with a wonderful proposal. Let's change the world. We are not a threat to you anymore. We are not a religious country. We are secular, completely secular. All the threat of religion that we carried with us as an empire are lost. Europe was in a shock. He became the dearest son of the new world, the man who promises to take away the threat. But they said, prove us. How can you prove that that is not going to happen? And Kemal Atatürk did several very, very important things. First of all, he changed the language, the writings. The Arab letters were taken out from the Turkish language, numbers and letters. The dressing were changing. You were not allowed to be dressed, not with the chador and not with the tarbush and not with the whole Turkish regular things, just to show that I'm serious. But what was more important than anything else, the resting day of the Muslims, which is Friday, was changed to a Sunday. That was a religious revolution. And he said, now you can believe me that I am not anymore a religious person, I'm a secular person. You can accept me as one of yours. In every aspect, Europe went out of their way to satisfy Kemal Atatürk. They brought him in, they took a lot of immigration from Turkey because Turkey is not religious anymore, so it's not a threat. They put them in every institution as NATO and other things which came later on, Turkey became the favorite son to a certain degree. Not completely, because they were still afraid, because religion is religion and the scare is a scare, and 600 years of threat are not perishing in one moment. But at the meantime, Turkey had a lot of changes in itself. Kemal Atatürk was not there. The society started to shift. We cannot speak about one Turkey, but still it was a secular country which was well accepted, with a lot of willingness for concessions to Turkey. As such, as they were not accused anymore with the Holocaust to the Armenians, they were not accused in other things which usually use, for example, the Kurds who wanted always to get a part of independence were refused by the world because everyone didn't want to aggravate Turkey, and Turkey got whatever they wanted to do. At the meantime, the world itself changed completely. The big powers of 1916, 1918, the First World War and the Second World War, as England and France started to deteriorate. Now we don't have anymore four big powers as England, France, America, and Russia. We're having America and Russia, and that's it. And the truth of the matter that England and France are losing more and more and more of their international situation. And that created a lot of willingness between new powers to take over. One of the changes, and I'm jumping because I said to you it's a very big story and it's a big undertaking to describe the whole situation, but always Turkey is playing a very important role in it. In 1954, Gamal Abdel Nasser comes into power in Egypt. Gamal Abdel Nasser was a very great leader, and he started to speak not only of becoming the leader of big Egypt, but he wanted very much to become the leader of the Arab people. He spoke about three circles. First of all, he spoke about the Arab countries. The Arab countries are 22 countries in the world of today. And he wanted very much to be the leaders of the Arabs. He spoke about the pan-Arabism, which is starting now to move. With that, he wanted to come to the Islamic nations, which are 51 Islamic nations in the whole region. And from that, he wanted to go to the non-identified countries, which is a very big group, which will make him a leader of a third power in the hegemony of the whole world. As an Arab leader, he had more success. He went to, first of all, for the unification with Syria. It was not such a success with the Islamic country. It was even lesser of success because he had to fight against a very strong leader as Sukarno, as Nehru, as people who belonged to the other countries. And he passed away in 1970, and all his dreams to become the leader of the Muslim countries or the Arab countries died with him, but not for long. Another leader came in another country. His name was Muammar Gaddafi. 1969, he became the leader of Libya. As a leader of Libya, he had great dreams and great desires. First of all, he tried to make a unity with Yemen, and then he started to do some connections with Africa, with Chad and other countries. He understood immediately, like Nasser, that if I want to become one of the leaders who fights on the leadership of the world, I have to have an access to nuclear power. That is very important for me also. So Nasser tried to do it, and Israel stopped him in a very known way, as we know. But then Gaddafi started to have his own plan of having nuclear war weapon to start to build his strengths with having nuclear reactors and nuclear plan, which was very, very dangerous for everyone, and we will speak about it later. Another leader emerged to compete with Gaddafi. He was Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein said that he is the leader of the Sunni Arabs, and he is the one who will represent this power. He started with his willingness to buy the nuclear reactor from France, the Osirak, which fortunately enough Israel got rid of it very nicely, and it never stopped him from trying more. But he also said, if I'm going to be the leader of, my way to leadership has to have next to me nuclear power. The story with Saddam Hussein, we know what is happening and we know how he finished. And after what happened to Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi decided that he is ready to get rid of his nuclear plan because he understood that he won't be able to continue with this thing, and he really became, in a way, friendly to the West much more than anybody else. Another country joined the march to leadership, and this is relatively a small country. We are talking about a country that has no more than 300,000 citizens. Its name is Qatar. Very, very rich, very well protected because the biggest air base of America in the region is in Qatar. And very original. They didn't want to have nuclear because it was too big for them, but they had the new weapon that the world is learning now to appreciate, which is the media. They did everything to control the media, and they reached a stage that every Arab home in the world is having Al Jazeera in their private television, even if he lives in a tent in the desert. They were so influenced everywhere, and every leader in the Arab world could not ignore anymore Qatar. The leader of Qatar, pushed by his second wife, El Thani, invested a lot of money in advertising the country and marketing the country. He became the god of the media. He had his station in every language possible, including English, Spanish, Portuguese, and of course Arabic. And he wanted very much to compete on the leadership of the Arab world. He had also a strong relationship with the leaders of the Sunni religion leadership. And he became one of the very, very strong, powerful powers who competed on the willingness to become the leaders of the Islamic world. At that time, Iran, who started in 1979 to be guided by Ayatollah Khomeini, made a big revolution there and started a Sharia country, and of course went after the nuclear power, because if you want to get your recognition as a leading country, you have to put your hand on nuclear reactors. The story with Iran we know because it was published in the world all the time, including the concessions that were made by the United States. I won't get into it because this is not our subject of today. the leadership of Qatar changed. The son of the El Thani became the new leader, guided by his mother, Sheikh Hamosa, who is really the person behind the scene, and she is pushing Qatar to a strong position in all the subjects in the world. But he is a very young leader with a great willingness to be very influential in many places, very well heard. He's buying every effort it can advance his country in art, in culture, in sports, just to put them on the map, and very successful. But he accepted that maybe he should join forces with some others. Therefore, he is supporting every terror organizations in the world, and he is expecting to find somebody who might be his supporter to become the leading force of the Islamic moves in the new world, which has no leadership of today because of the changes that happened in our world of today. And then came another man who is a very unique person. His name is Tayyip Erdogan. Tayyip Erdogan came into power in Turkey and changed everything. First of all, he revolutionized the country. The country became back a religious country. Still, they are resting on a Sunday for now, but dressing, praying, speaking languages, everything changed to Islam. I must quote to you something very, very important, which will show how much it is. The greatest man in the religious world of the Sunnis today is Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who is the leader, the spiritual leader of the Islamic Brotherhood, and he speaks about how important it is to elect a leader of the Islamic world, and he says as follows: the unity of the righteous people of Islam decided that we should believe in the Caliphate. This has to be the leadership of the Muslims, and it has to be established in Istanbul, which will be the capital of the new caliphate. The new Turkey, which combines the religious and the state, the new and the old, the Arab and what is not Arab, and united the whole nation in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the United States, and everywhere. Qaradawi says also that the best qualified leader to this caliphate is Recep Erdogan. This is a leader who knows his God, he knows himself, he knows his people, and he knows the nation and the world. You should stand around him, of this man, and to swear loyalty to him, and telling him, go ahead, go ahead. That is the publication written by Joseph Qaradawi. Now, this is not a statement by somebody, not by a small rabbi or by a small Qadi or by a small... This is a leadership statement. Why is it made? Because there is now a competition about what is happening in the world. We should know that Erdogan is a very sophisticated man. Erdogan stands behind everything which happened lately in the whole Middle East. One of the things that he saw all the time, that the West is afraid of intruding, of refugees to come. He is responsible personally for the wave of refugees coming from the Middle East and Africa to Europe. And how did he do it? He was in a bad position a long time ago with Turkey. Then he made better relationship with Hafez Assad, and they quarreled a long time ago about some parts that were taken by Turkey, and they had dispute. But then they fixed their relationship, and one of the presents given to Assad by Erdogan was he gave him money, he gave him water from the sources that they had, and the whole water between the rivers and Damascus, which was really a desert, started to flourish. They had fields of wheat and fields of cotton, and millions of people made a living. It was a great success. Then he started to quarrel with Turkey, with Syria. They stopped the water. At the same time, it was a big drought in the whole region. All the fields went down, and all the people who lived in this region had nothing to eat. And they started to fill the cities of Damascus and Aleppo with refugees. That started the move against the government, and the whole revolution started with the moving inside Damascus. At the same time, he was one of the best friends of Gaddafi. $5 billion every year was given to Turkey to develop the capital of Libya. But he was the one who convinced NATO that they have to put down Gaddafi. And he stood behind NATO supporting the civil war where they killed Gaddafi in the streets. I'm not a friend of Gaddafi. I have no admiration to him. But he was a friend of the West. When he died, the island of Lampedusa, who was the buffer between the people who used to come from Africa to Europe, opened completely. A flood of refugees started to come from Africa and from the Maghreb into Europe. So you have now people who are coming from Libya, people who are coming from Syria, and the man who is in control, which the West is asking to prevent it, is Mr. Erdogan, who gets money to block the refugees, which he does a very poor job, as every one of us knows. What is happening today, that everyone wants to be, and he is very clever, and he is a friendly with every country possible. Even after the dispute that he had with Russia, he found a way to make peace with him, because he does not want now to be in a position that he is quarreling too much with people. Even with Iran, he is having a good relationship. But one of the things which bothers him today, that if he wants to compete on leadership of the world, he has to have nuclear power. And now he is aiming to make relationship with Pakistan, who is the only country who has now available nuclear power, and that is going to be one of his aims, to make stronger relationship and to become one of the people who are trying to run the world and to change everything. The truth of the matter that he is playing wonderful politics. He, for example, was against Daesh, and then he became friendly with the Daesh. Why? Because Daesh was the enemy of the Kurds, and the Kurds are very important. Today we had some publications about in the WikiLeaks, as much as you can trust the WikiLeaks. You should know that he is very clever, very fishy, and very, very dangerous. Our region will be the first place that he can put his finger, and wherever he touched, grass never grows. We have to know that one of the changes in our region will come from the people who wants to lead the Islamic nation. He is the candidate. He is the man that the religious people are speaking about him. And as long as he will take this position seriously, quiet won't be in our region. I must say that I can see his way of action in every direction, including Turkey. I visited Turkey in 2004. I visited the Turkish part and the Greek part. I saw at that time that it was terrible even to think about unity with the little part that was taken by the Turks, and it was never ever willingness even to discuss how to make complete peace between the two. At that time that I visited there, Turkey was presented in the island by a real minority, then less than third of the population. Now when I visited, I had a meeting with my friends of Erpic in November 15. They are already 50%. Settlers in Israel is a problem. All Europe are raving, how are you recognized settlers? Settlers is dangerous for peace. But in Turkey, in Cyprus, settlers are half of the population today, and very welcome, very good, it's very important, let's do something together. I am not going to dictate, to lecture to Turkey, to Cyprus what to do, but as more as you look around, the future looks very strange, because the willingness of Turkey was all the time to become part of Europe, of becoming united, half Turkey, half Cyprus together. It is the first step of Turkey to become part of Europe without even having to be elected or voted for. And therefore, I expect a lot of difficulties for all of us about what is happening. Because if you will see what is happening in the part of the Mediterranean opposite Syria, this is something which is boiling and boiling and boiling. And fingers are being sent to the whole region. And that is my estimation about what is happening in our region. And thank you very much for listening to me.
You mentioned that Qatar, under Sheikh Musa, supports every terror organization in the world. I find that quite surprising, particularly with the American presence in Qatar. Do we have firm evidence for that, or is this just following the money?
Hamas lives because of Qatar.
Yeah.
And Hezbollah also. And you cannot ignore what they are doing there. And everyone is consulting even when they are giving it. And nobody prevents them to do it. And the truth of the matter that a lot of recognition in Europe to those two movements were led by Qatar. So I'm saying it very openly, they are supporting terrorism with not being ashamed, because when you have the money, you are not ashamed to do anything.
Let me just widen it back to Turkey again. You said that Erdogan wants to have a nuclear weapon. Do you think he will press ahead with that whatever happens in Iran? Or do you think he will wait and see what happens in Iran and then get a nuclear weapon?
He is aiming now to have special relationship with Pakistan, which lost a lot of touch with the West. They are not as friendly as they used to be before, and there is no great control on Pakistan. And Pakistan looks to him as something moving and shaking that he can put a finger there. He is not having to control. It's enough that he will be connected, that people will say, I have an influence on nuclear power. I don't have to own it, but I am there, not far away, in a finger, with one finger to touch, to be accommodated with a nuclear reactor.
Okay, but it's quite interesting when we look at Pakistan and the Chinese influence and the re-establishment of perhaps a new Silk Road. Do you see that as a new alignment with the Shanghai Cooperation Council? Do you see that as a new way that Turkey will exploit its old historical interests in the Far East.
Well, this is exactly Erdogan.
Yeah.
Erdogan believes very much that the whole Islamic region, from what we used to call Russia, is still available to influence. And he is, as more as he will become stronger, and if he will have a finger to nuclear power, he will be stronger, then he will be able to really build a new area around him or as a leader of the Islamic people.
You think that he's biding his time as far as Russia is concerned? Right now, he can perhaps wait a little longer before he tries to make it difficult for them to be in Syria, or you think that he's going to accept the Russian presence?
He really suffered very much from the time that Russia hit him on his hands for his behavior. He's very clever and very careful. Now he behaves very nice. But it is only actions outside. It is not his strong belief. He don't want to follow anybody. He wants to lead. He won't become the slave of Russia. He will use his relationship not to aggravate them as long as he can, that he will be able to build his power, and then they will have to talk to him with respect and not with inferiority.
And how will his relations develop with Israel in particular? You didn't mention that in much detail.
Well, this is a phenomena also. He knows that Israel plays a very, very important role. And he knows that Israel don't want to touch him as long as he's not touching Israel. Exactly as he's doing with Russia, he is doing with Israel. He said, let's be friends. We have nothing to fight against each other. But it's for the time being. As soon as it will be better to have somebody else, he will make his calculation. He is not a friend. The love is not pouring out of him. We had a lot of good relationship with Turkey, and we had a lot of people in Turkey who wanted very much relationship because they felt that the friendship with Israel is good for them. That's not the case with him, according to my opinion. And I think that for the time being, it's good for him and it's good for us.
David, do you see a post-Erdogan Turkey developing? I mean, we're all human. We all have an expiration date. Do you see the pendulum going back to a more secular, more Ataturk policies after Erdogan? I mean.
The truth of the matter that he is building himself very, very clever. You should see the way he is doing things. Erdogan builds a shrine, 1,001 rooms, billions of dollars to build. Why? Because he wants to create pride among the people. One of the lectures people has to learn, and it affected now America also, that after the fall down of the Soviet Union, people in Russia didn't burst in joy. They felt humiliated. They felt that the whole big name that they had before does not exist anymore. Nobody takes them seriously. So it's right that we don't have too much food, and it's right that we don't have, but where is our pride? Putin brought the pride to Russia and got immediately huge support by the people. Erdogan is the same. Erdogan came to the people and said, listen, who counts you? You became nobodies. You are not even able to protect your religion. Your religion is not important. Nothing. You are giving away your God for some recognition of cheap people. Follow me. And he builds himself as a prophet. That's what Kardawi says. That is the meaning of having around him the religious leadership who supports him. This is the danger, because if that will be the danger, after he will come somebody else of the same opinion, of the same way, of the same power, and I don't see an immediate revolution in the whole of Turkey. Turkey is going down as a democracy. It's not a democracy. No, it was not a democracy for a long time. Now it's even less and less and less.
Is there more support for a Turkish caliphate beyond the Muslim Brotherhood? Is Qatar also, is the new sheikh in Qatar agreeing with it?
First of all, Qaradawi sits in Qatar. He would never say something that Qatar wouldn't agree with. So that's first. Second, because of Iran, the Sunnis are believing that the fight is who will be the leader, and they want to be the leaders, but they are fighting on leadership and not just to maintain. The truth of the matter that Islam of today is fighting for a greater recognition and a greater part in playing the role in the world. 1,600,000,000 is the number of Syria, of the Islam, and of China, and of the other world. So this is a struggle of power. Why are they always speaking about that we are the Muslim, we are 1.6, to show that we are having the numbers? You have to take me into consideration. You have to take me serious. The only problem that I have is that I don't have a leader. Give me the leadership, I will show you what I can do. That's all.
Can I ask you to say a few words about the recent coup that took place? Who you think principally was supporting it, and what you think the political outcome will be?
From the very first moment, such a coup can only be done by a leader, because nobody will ever attack an empty place. Nobody will attack things which had happened. Nobody will make a coup without trying to take control on television, on radio, on newspapers. It was not a coup. It was a plot. That is my estimation from the very first moment. That what I said when I saw the beginning. This is not a coup. That was a plot, that was planned, and that was a very good plan, because that helped to put everyone in order and to organize what has to be organized, according to my opinion.
So you think it was set up, basically, probably by Erdogan and his friends?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
According to my opinion.
Do you think any other nations were involved in it?
I don't believe that he did it, because he is a very confidential person.
Okay.
And he believes in the conspiracy, and he always believes that if he speaks to somebody, somebody else knows. So it's not like him to share such a plan with somebody.
And what will be the impact? According to the BBC, there are 105,000 people that have either been dismissed from their jobs or placed in prison. What will be the effect on Turkey itself, both as regards secularism and politically?
Turkey will go back to religion, and one of the signs will be that they will change from Sunday to Friday. And that will be the moment that they will say that they are strong enough to declare about their being real Muslims. And it will happen. That's according to my judgment. They cannot continue to play around with this story.
And that presumably will mark the end of their aspirations in Europe.
Europe has a problem. Europe has a great problem. I must say that for a very long time, Europe started to share their responsibility with others, but not to take care about their own responsibility.
Yeah.
The army in Europe is very, very weak. The decision in China, the decision to have one child was a decision that they made politically. But in Europe, they made a decision spiritually, and they have one only son in the family, to have an army with one only son is very difficult. You cannot run an army with only one, with a single son of a family. It is not the same army anymore. I don't think that Europe even expressing willingness to protect itself. And therefore, every time that when they needed something, they went to Turkey. A lot of times when they needed some involvement, even in Syria, they wanted very much Turkey to go. Turkey didn't go according to their will. They went according to their will, and they used the forces against the Kurds and against that. But Europe, the only one who fights in Europe is Russia.
Yeah.
Who fights in Europe? Who does anything in Europe? The only stupidity was when they went to bombard Libya. Why? The hell, what was so urgent to go and to kill a man who came across and wanted to live with them in peace and got rid of all his nuclear reactors and all the nuclear power that he started to hide? Who was behind it? It was Turkey who convinced them to do it. They never took part in anything, including in Syria. Listen, we should know, I spoke about the First World War, 16.5 million, the world was in a shock. But then we had the Second World War, which we had 26 million people who were killed during the war. And now when we are talking about 500,000, 1 million in Syria, who cares about? Who does anything about? Who lifted the finger to prevent? Is that the world who wants to protect this? It's not only to protect the people in Syria. It is themselves, even the word that I am doing something to convince somebody. Who believes them? Who in the Middle East believe that somebody of those big nations will lift a finger for somebody else? This is the story.
And it's happening in Yemen, for example, as you rightly say.
Exactly. The hundreds of people are being killed, and who lifted a finger?
Nobody. No. Can I tax you on one final point, if I may? There is, of course, quite a large Turkish diaspora scattered around the Middle East and the Near East. I'm thinking of Turkmen in places like Kirkuk. Do you see there's a likelihood that we're going to see more Turkish bases around, say, the Gulf and further east, and presences gradually building up some sort of neo-colonial empire?
I think it will try, because the truth of the matter that the way of today is to try to build basics outside the centers and to spread.
Yeah.
That is the new line. Russia is doing it, others are doing it. So definitely I can see it among those people who are trying to play a role. And I don't see anybody who prevents himself now from taking places outside the centers. They want to spread in many other places, because send your fingers, that's the new way of making politics of today. By the way, look what is happening in Syria. In Syria, Latakia is going to be a port of Russia. Iran is going to get a port there. Syria wants to get a port in the region. Everyone is willing to have somewhere to share some, to take a gift and to chew it all the time. That's the situation. It's a terrible situation. There is no leadership. Erdogan is right. Erdogan feels that there is a vacuum in leadership. There is no one leader. The only stupid thing that the leadership is acting is about nonsense, about big things. You don't hear them. They are fighting about, shall we do a general meeting about some place. Nothing important is being done. Even refugees. Who was speaking about refugees? We have 38 million people are refugees this year in the region. Who is doing anything about? Who speaks about? Who is trying to give any solution? The world is silent because there is nobody to speak. And every leader is afraid to lose his chair because they are all losing their chairs. And the public is not happy with the leadership. So this is the situation. By the way, this is the region or the reason of the change in the United States.
Yeah. Just predicting ahead for a little bit, looking into your crystal ball, how do you see relations with Turkey, between Turkey and China and Turkey and Trump?
Turkey and China is to be seen. China is playing slowly. China is trying to be careful because they know they are on the edge of doing too much. They are planning now with the Chinese Sea, which they are trying to change the history of this region, and they don't want to create too much tension. If they will start building relationship, they don't want to share power. As yet, China is a power on itself. Russia was likely more to make some relationship with, because Russia is in a weaker position than China. But Russia is clever. Putin will not fall into the trap because he does not trust Putin. This is the story. The truth is that Erdogan is disliked by everyone because nobody trusts him. He betrayed everyone. He was the best friend of Bashar al-Assad, and he betrayed him. He was a friend of Russia, and he betrayed them. He was a friend of Gaddafi, and he betrayed him. He was a friend of Europe, but he pushed the refugees to Europe.
David,
So-
exactly on this issue, I mean, on this question of a single leader for the Muslim people, is Erdogan the person that will attract support from everybody? I mean, it doesn't seem that the Arab world is a democratic place, so that they will elect a new caliph. I think this idea of a single leader is always going to be a pipe dream.
I will tell you a story. I visited once in Cuba. I went with the chief rabbi of Israel, and I went to see Fidel Castro. And it was a very interesting conversation. And he said, you know, you are coming to visit a country which never had any anti-Semitism. I liked the Jews, I helped, I supported, I did a lot of things. And then we asked him, if you are so friendly, why won't you recognize Israel and have a relationship with Israel? And he said, I'll tell you the truth. The world was divided to left and right. My left lost. And I had to stick to the minorities of the people who can support me. What I can get from them is more than I can get for you. Therefore, I cannot be your friend because I have to give away the relationship with them. That was his honest answer. Mm-hmm. But that was his philosophy. The poor, the people who feel betrayed, the people who feel infuriated, the people who feel that they are not getting the right recognition or the right power or are united. This is a new power. North Korea, for example. They are all surrounding her. Saddam Hussein at that time, who was his friend. The truth of the matter that he will appeal to a lot of people who feels that nobody takes them serious. And he has a charisma, he has power, he has a lot of support, and he creates leadership which should be supported, especially if the religious authorities will stand behind him. I won't see it as an option which is not really in reality. Definitely not. I see that he is he can be very influential in his activities and people will follow him.
How will Trump
Unfortunately.
get on with Erdogan?
I beg your pardon?
How will Donald Trump get on with Erdogan?
I don't know. The truth of the matter that he is a man who speaks straight and looks less afraid from anybody else. He is attacking the biggest power in the world. He's attacking the media. Nobody up till now of any leader in the world was not brave enough to attack them. He is doing it. So it gives you some expectations that the man can be a new kind of a leader. But this is not, we don't have enough evidence. As yet, he is the only one who didn't show any fear from anybody. He stood behind what he says. You can agree with me, you can not agree with me, I'm going full steam ahead. And he did it. It might be good for the world, but we don't have enough evidence to build a case around it.
Well, he could volunteer for isolationism, of course, couldn't he? America first. And the rest
Yes,
of the world
but
can
you
go
see,
hang.
you see that he's successful there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not simple. Nobody did it before. They're all hiding.
Yeah.
They're all afraid to speak. He spoke, and he won against all the will of every television station in America.
David, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be with you, and looking forward to continue to see you.